Jake Morrison had been hauling cargo through deep space for nearly 8 years, and in all that time, he'd learned one important rule: mind your own business. The galaxy was full of trouble, and the best way to stay alive was to stick to your route, deliver your goods, and collect your pay. But when that distress beacon started pinging on his scanner, something in his gut told him this was different. His ship's computer chimed with its usual monotone warning. Distress signal detected. Origin, Dragon vessel. Recommend immediate course correction to avoid diplomatic incident. Jake stared at the blinking red dot on his screen. Dragon space. Everyone knew you didn't mess with Dragon territory. The Dragon councils had laws older than human civilization, and they didn't take kindly to outsiders poking around their business. Ships that violated Dragon space had a tendency to disappear, no questions asked. How far off our route? Jake asked. 2 hours at current speed. However, protocol strongly advises against. Yeah, I got it. Plot an intercept course anyway. The computer made a sound that almost seemed disapproving, but complied. Jake knew he was probably making a huge mistake. His cargo run was already behind schedule, and his boss back on the station would have his head if he showed up late again. But that distress signal kept pinging, regular as a heartbeat, and Jake couldn't shake the image of someone out there waiting for help that would never come. The wreckage came into view slowly, tumbling through space near a cluster of asteroids. It had been a beautiful ship once, sleek and elegant in the way Dragon vessels always were. Now it was split open like a cracked egg, trailing debris and frozen atmosphere. Jake maneuvered his hauler close, running every scan he had. No life signs registered, but that didn't mean much. Dragon biology was different enough that human scanners sometimes missed them entirely. The radiation levels made his detector scream warnings at him. Whatever had happened here, it had been catastrophic. He suited up and crossed over on a tether, magnetic boots clanking against the damaged hull. The interior was a mess of twisted metal and shattered crystal panels. Emergency lighting flickered weakly, casting strange shadows. Jake moved carefully through the wreckage, following the faint sound of the distress beacon deeper into the ship. That's when he heard something else. A small, broken sound that made his heart clench. Crying. Jake rounded a corner and froze. 3 small dragons huddled together in what had once been a cargo bay. They were tiny, maybe the size of golden retrievers, with scales that should have gleamed but were dulled with dust and fear. And behind them, barely visible in the dim light, was a much larger dragon. An adult. Their mother, Jake realized immediately. She wasn't moving. Her breathing came in shallow, labored gasps that Jake could hear even through his helmet. The babies were pressed against her, making those heartbreaking sounds of distress that crossed every species barrier Jake had ever known. The smallest one spotted him first. Its eyes went huge with terror, and it let out a sharp cry that brought the other 2 around to face him. They tried to look fierce, bearing tiny fangs and spreading small wings, but Jake could see them shaking. Please don't hurt us, the smallest one whimpered in halting Galactic Common, the trade language most species used. Its voice was high and scared. Please. Mommy is dying. Jake's chest tightened. He'd seen a lot in his years running cargo, but nothing had prepared him for this. These weren't the terrifying apex predators from the story spaces told in bars. They were just children, scared and desperate, watching their mother slip away. He held up his hands slowly, making himself as non-threatening as possible. Hey, I'm not gonna hurt anybody. I'm here to help, okay? The largest of the 3, a bronze-scaled female, positioned herself protectively in front of her siblings. Humans lie. Humans always lie. Some do, Jake admitted, keeping his voice gentle and steady. I won't pretend otherwise. But I'm not here to hurt you. Your mom needs help, and I've got medical training. Will you let me try? The baby dragons looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation. Then the mother dragon's eyes cracked open. They were beautiful and ancient, filled with a wisdom that made Jake feel very young and very small. She looked directly at him and made a deep, rumbling sound in her chest. The bronze hatchling listened, then turned back to Jake. Her voice was suspicious but tinged with desperate hope. Mommy says she can feel your fire. She says it burns warm, not hot. Jake had no idea what that meant, but there wasn't time to puzzle it out. His suit's radiation detector was going crazy. The ship's engine core had breached, flooding the area with lethal radiation. That's what was killing the mother dragon, poisoning her slowly from the inside out. All right, here's the deal, Jake said, already moving toward them and unslinging his emergency medical kit. I'm going to do everything I can to help your mom. But I need you 3 to stay calm and help me. Can you do that? The smallest dragon nodded frantically, tears streaming down its scaled cheeks in a way that was heartbreakingly familiar. The other two didn't nod, but they didn't try to stop him either as Jake knelt beside their mother. Up close, she was magnificent even in her weakened state. Her scales were deep emerald green shot through with gold. She had to be at least 20 feet long, though she was curled protectively around her babies. Jake's hands looked ridiculously small as he began his assessment. Radiation poisoning. Severe trauma to her left wing. Burns across her back where something had exploded. Internal injuries he could only guess at. Jake had treated a lot of species in his time on the frontier, but never a dragon. He was going to have to improvise and hope his knowledge translated. His ship's computer spoke in his earpiece. Jake, I'm detecting multiple vessels entering the system. Dragon warships. 6 of them. Estimated time of arrival, 4 hours. Of course. Dragons protected their own. These kids had probably triggered every alarm in the sector when their ship went down. Great, Jake muttered. Just great. The bronze hatchling was watching him with sharp, intelligent eyes. Why are you helping us? You gain nothing from this. When the warships arrive, they'll kill you for touching us. Jake didn't look up from his work. He was rigging a makeshift radiation purge using parts from his own ship's medical bay, trying to adapt human equipment for dragon physiology. Where I come from, you don't leave kids alone to watch their parent die. You just don't. End of story. He injected the mother dragon with broad-spectrum antivenoms and antibiotics, praying something in the cocktail would help. He wrapped thermal regulation blankets around her massive body, trying to stabilize her temperature. He worked with steady hands and a calm voice, talking quietly to both the mother and her babies as he went. The smallest hatchling crept closer, watching with wide eyes. What's your name? Jake Morrison. What's yours? Reed. That's my sister Lissa, and my brother Tommy. Jake blinked in surprise. Those are human names. Mommy likes humans, Lissa said softly, still watching him with suspicion but slightly less hostility. She was coming back from peace meetings on the human frontier. She had treaties. Important ones. But bad people attacked us in the dark between stars. Pirates who wanted to steal what she carried. Mommy fought them off, but our ship was hurt. She made an emergency jump to save us, but the engines broke. Her voice cracked. We've been here for 2 days. We thought nobody would come. We thought we'd watch Mommy die and then die ourselves. Jake's jaw tightened. 2 days these kids had been here, terrified and alone. Well, I'm here now. And I'm not letting that happen. The mother dragon's breathing was already steadying. The radiation counter on Jake's detector was ticking downward as the purge worked. It wasn't much, and she wasn't out of danger by a long shot, but it was progress. Tommy, the middle child, suddenly rushed forward and pressed against Jake's side. The little dragon was warm, almost hot, like a living furnace. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for helping Mommy. Reed joined him a moment later, then Lissa. All 3 hatchlings pressed against Jake, seeking comfort from the strange human who'd appeared in their darkest moment. Jake felt something crack in his chest. He put his arms around them carefully, feeling their small bodies trembling. It's gonna be okay, he said softly. I've got you. His computer chimed again. Jake, the lead warship is hailing us. They're demanding you exit the vessel immediately with your hands visible, or they'll open fire. The 3 little dragons tensed in his arms. Lissa looked up at him with ancient eyes in a young face. You should go. Save yourself. We understand. Jake looked down at her, then at her brothers, then at their mother who'd given everything to protect them. He thought about running. About leaving before the warships arrived. About saving his own skin. Then he activated his comm unit. Tell them I'm in the middle of a medical emergency, and I'll talk when my patient is stable. Not before. Jake, that's suicide, his computer protested. Maybe. Send it anyway. Lissa stared at him in wonder. You'd really die for us? For dragons you just met. Jake managed a tired smile. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, kiddo. But I'm not leaving you. That's a promise. The mother dragon's eyes opened fully for the first time. She looked at Jake and made a sound like distant thunder, deep and resonant. Lissa listened, then translated in a voice filled with awe. Mommy says you have the bravest fire she's ever felt. She says she trusts you with our lives. Outside, 6 dragon warships powered up their weapons, their targeting systems locked on the small cargo hauler and the human who just made the most dangerous decision of his life. The transmission crackled through Jake's helmet with barely contained rage. A voice like grinding stone spoke in Galactic Common. Human vessel, you have 30 seconds to evacuate the dragon ship and present yourself for judgment. Failure to comply will result in immediate destruction. Jake's hands didn't stop moving. He was adjusting the flow rate on the radiation purge, watching the mother dragon's vital signs on his portable scanner. Her heart rate was still too fast, her breathing too shallow, but she was alive. That had to count for something. Jake, his ship's computer warned. 20 seconds. I really must insist you consider survival. Send them everything, Jake said calmly. Every medical reading. Every scan. Show them exactly what I'm doing here. The data streamed out from his suit's recorder. Video feed, medical telemetry, radiation readings, the works. Jake kept working while the dragons reviewed the evidence. He cleaned and sealed a nasty wound on the mother dragon's wing, applied synthetic skin patches to burns across her scales, and checked the 3 babies for injuries they might have hidden out of fear. Reed had a sprained back leg. Tommy had some bruised ribs. Lissa seemed physically fine but was clearly exhausted from trying to protect her brothers for 2 days straight. The silence from the warship stretched on. Jake could feel the targeting lasers painting his position, tracking his every move. One wrong word and they'd turn this wreckage into a cloud of vapor. Then a new voice came through. Older. Deeper. It carried weight like mountains settling. Human. I am Commander Variance of the Dragon Defense Fleet. You have violated sacred law by touching Dragon Young. The penalty is death. Explain why I should not execute that sentence immediately. Jake kept his voice level and respectful. Commander, my name is Jake Morrison. I'm a cargo hauler, and I've got some basic medical training from my time in the frontier colonies. I picked up a distress beacon and found a crashed ship with a dying mother and 3 scared kids. I'm trying to save a life. That's all. That is not all, Variance rumbled. You have broken laws that existed before your species reached the stars. Laws written in dragon blood after centuries of betrayal and theft. Do you understand what you've done? I understand you've been hurt before, Jake said. I understand you have every reason not to trust outsiders. But sir, with respect, I couldn't just leave them here. Lissa suddenly pushed forward, her small voice cutting through the tension. Uncle Variance. It's me. It's Lissa. The human saved Mommy. Please don't hurt him. The silence that followed was different. Jake could almost hear the shock rippling through the fleet. Lissa? Variance's voice had changed, softened. Child, is that truly you? Is your mother alive? Yes. Lissa's words tumbled out in a rush. He found us and we were so scared and Mommy was dying and he didn't run away even though we tried to scratch him and he used his own medicine and his own ship parts and has been helping us and please don't kill him, Uncle Variance, please. Jake looked down at his arms. Sure enough, there were scratches under his suit sleeves he hadn't even noticed. The babies had been defending their mother when he first approached. He couldn't blame them for that. The mother dragon stirred. She lifted her massive head with obvious effort and spoke for the first time. Her voice was like rolling thunder, musical and powerful even in weakness. The 3 babies listened intently, then Lissa began translating. Mommy says her name is Sorella. She says she was returning from peace negotiations with the human frontier worlds. She was carrying signed treaties, documents that could change the relationship between our species forever. Pirates ambushed her ship near the Kelvin Belt. They wanted to steal the treaties, sell them to the highest bidder. She fought them off but took heavy damage. She had to make an emergency jump through unstable space to save us children. The engine core breached during the jump. She's been dying slowly from radiation poisoning for 2 days. Lissa's voice cracked. Mommy says she prayed to the ancient flames for a miracle. She prayed someone would find us before she died and left us alone. Then this human came. She says he didn't hesitate. Didn't demand payment. Didn't ask questions. He just started helping. She says his spirit burns clean and true. Jake heard something unexpected through the sharp intake of breath from Commander Variance. Sorella lives, the commander said, and there was emotion in his voice now. After 2 days in a breached ship, Sorella still lives. Because of you, human. She's not out of danger yet, Jake said honestly. But she's stable. Give me a few more hours and better equipment, and I think I can get her through this. You will have your equipment. Transport beam activating. Do not resist. Blue light engulfed Jake's vision. He felt the strange sensation of being disassembled and reassembled, and when his vision cleared, he was standing in an enormous hangar bay. The space was big enough to hold a dozen of his cargo ships. Dragons of every size and color filled the area, all staring at him with expressions he couldn't read. The three babies materialized beside him, immediately pressing against his legs despite being surrounded by their own kind. Even here, safe among dragons, they stayed close to their human protector. An absolutely massive dragon approached. His scales were deep blue with silver highlights, and his eyes were sharp with intelligence. This had to be Variance. The dragon was easily the size of a small building. "Jake Morrison," Variance said, lowering his enormous head to look Jake in the eye. "You've created an unprecedented situation." "Didn't mean to cause trouble, sir. Just trying to do the right thing." "The right thing," Variance repeated. "Do you know what Sorella is? She's not just any dragon. She's an emissary. A member of our High Council. Her children are precious to all dragonkind. And you, a human who had every reason to fear us, saved them when approaching could have meant your death." Medical teams were already swarming around Sorella, who had been transported aboard with them. They had equipment that made Jake's field kit look like caveman tools. Crystal devices that hummed with energy, scanners that painted the air with light, treatments Jake couldn't even begin to understand. Sorella was speaking to the medical team, gesturing with one wing toward Jake. Even weak and injured, she carried herself with dignity and authority. Tommy translated quietly. "Mommy's telling them everything you did. Every treatment. She says you improvised brilliantly with primitive equipment. She says you knew the risks but never hesitated." Variance studied Jake for a long moment. Those ancient eyes seemed to look right through him. "The High Council has convened via emergency session. They're debating your fate as we speak. This has never happened before, you understand. A human saving dragon young. We must decide what it means for our laws, our security, our future." "Decide what it means?" Jake frowned. "It means I helped someone in trouble. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that." "For dragons, everything is more complicated than that," Variance said. "We have long memories, Jake Morrison. We remember every species that tried to steal our eggs, study our young, weaponize our biology. Our laws exist because trust has cost us dearly in the past." "I understand that," Jake said. "But I'm not them. I'm just a guy who couldn't walk away from kids in trouble." A smaller dragon, her scales golden and warm, approached. She spoke in accented English. "I am Gila Myra. Sorella has requested you stay with the hatchlings during her treatment. She says they trust you, and keeping them calm will aid her recovery. Will you accept this responsibility?" Jake looked down at Lissa, Tommy, and Reed. 3 pairs of eyes looked back at him with absolute trust. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'll stay with them." As Sorella was taken to the medical bay, the 3 babies refused to leave Jake's side. A dragon escorted them to a waiting area with furniture sized for both dragons and smaller species. The babies curled up against Jake, exhausted from fear and stress. "Tell me a story," Reed asked quietly. "Something happy. Something human." So Jake did. He told them about Earth, about oceans and forests, about cities that touched the sky. He told them about his childhood, growing up on a colony world where different species lived side by side. He told them funny stories about his cargo runs, about the time he accidentally delivered fish food to a conference of fish people diplomats. The babies slowly relaxed, their breathing evening out. Tommy fell asleep first, snoring softly. Reed followed soon after. Lissa fought it the longest, determined to stay awake and protect her brothers. "You can rest," Jake told her gently. "I'll keep watch." "Promise?" she asked, her young voice small. "Promise." Lissa's eyes drifted closed. Within minutes, all 3 were asleep, trusting this strange human completely. Commander Variance watched from the doorway. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "They've never trusted an outsider before. Never. Even dragons they don't know make them cautious. But you? They trust you absolutely." "I just helped them when they needed it," Jake said. "No," Variance said. "You did more than that. You showed them that not every stranger is a threat. That kindness exists beyond species boundaries. That's a lesson that could change everything, Jake Morrison. If you survive what comes next." Jake looked at the sleeping babies, at the gentle rise and fall of their breathing. "Whatever comes next," he said quietly, "it was worth it." The council chamber was like nothing Jake had ever seen. The space was massive enough to hold thunderstorms, with crystalline walls that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. 12 ancient dragons sat in a perfect circle, each one radiating power that made every instinct Jake had scream at him to run. He stood in the center, feeling smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. They'd separated him from the babies an hour ago. Lissa had clung to his jacket, begging to stay with him. Tommy and Reed had both started crying. It took Sorella herself, still weak but recovering, to convince them that Jake would be okay. Jake wasn't sure he believed it himself. The eldest dragon spoke first. His scales were white as ancient bone, and his eyes glowed like molten gold. I am Elder Hrothgar, first of the council. Human, you stand accused of violating the most sacred of our laws. You have touched dragon young without permission or authority. How do you answer this charge? Jake took a breath and kept his voice steady. Elder Hrothgar, with all due respect, I stand accused of saving lives. If that's a crime, then I guess I'm guilty. A ripple of reaction went through the assembled dragons. Some looked shocked. Others seemed almost amused. One dragon, her scales deep crimson, spoke sharply. You dare show disrespect in this chamber? You, who violated laws that existed before your species discovered fire. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Jake said. But I'm not going to apologize for helping dying people either. Where I come from, we judge actions by their intent and their outcome. I intended to save a life. I succeeded. That's what matters to me. A silver dragon to Hrothgar's right shifted forward. The law exists for a reason, human. For millennia, other species have tried to steal our young. To study them. To weaponize them. To control our future. We cannot simply ignore such violations because you claim good intentions. I'm not asking you to ignore anything, Jake replied. I'm asking you to see the difference between someone who helps and someone who hurts. When I found Sorella and her kids, I didn't see valuable specimens. I didn't see political leverage or scientific curiosities. I saw a mom trying to protect her children. I saw 3 scared kids who needed help. That's all. That's all? The Crimson Dragon's voice dripped with skepticism. You expect us to believe you had no ulterior motives? No plans to use this incident for political gain? Jake actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. Lady, I haul cargo for a living. I live in a ship barely big enough to turn around in. My biggest political concern is usually whether the port authority is going to overcharge me for docking fees. I don't have ulterior motives. I just have a conscience. From somewhere above, Jake heard a familiar voice. The chamber had viewing galleries, and Lissa was pressed against the transparent barrier, her brothers beside her. He gave us his food, she shouted down. He only had ration bars for 3 days, and he gave them all to us. He let us sleep against him even though Tommy accidentally burned his jacket. He sang us songs when Reed had nightmares. Jake winced. He'd really hoped they wouldn't mention that part. Elder Hrothgar's expression shifted slightly. You sang to them? They were terrified, Jake said quietly. It's what you do for scared kids. You try to comfort them however you can. A dragon with golden scales spoke for the first time, her voice gentler than the others. What did you sing, human? An old earth song. You are my sunshine. My mom used to sing it to me when I was little and scared of the dark. The temperature in the chamber seemed to change. The dragons looked at each other, and Jake got the sense they were having some kind of silent conversation. Dragon telepathy was a thing, he'd heard, though they rarely used it with other species. Commander Varian stepped forward from where he'd been standing at the chamber's edge. Elder Hrothgar, honorable council members, if I may speak. Hrothgar inclined his massive head. Proceed, Commander. I propose we subject Jake Morrison to the trial of fire. Every dragon in the chamber went completely still. The silence was so absolute that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. His ship's computer, still linked to his suit, whispered in his earpiece. Jake, I've accessed the Dragon Cultural Database. The trial of fire is an ancient ritual. It's designed to test the spiritual worthiness of young dragons before they reach adulthood. The survival rate for non-dragons is 0%. Literally 0. No other species has ever survived it. Jake's mouth went dry, but he kept his face neutral. Hrothgar considered the suggestion carefully. The trial would prove his intentions beyond any doubt. If his inner fire burns true, we would know. If he possesses the spirit he claims, it would be revealed. But Commander, you know what you're proposing. This human would almost certainly die. I understand the risk, Variant said. But it would answer our questions permanently. Either he possesses true spirit, or he does not. The trial cannot be fooled. What is this trial? Jake asked, even though he was pretty sure he didn't want to know the answer. Hrothgar turned those ancient golden eyes on him. The trial of fire is how we test the worthiness of our own young. You would face 3 challenges designed to reveal your true nature: physical pain, mental anguish, and moral choice. Dragons undergo it as a rite of passage. For a human. He paused. Your body is not built to withstand dragon trials. The heat alone would likely kill you. But if you somehow survived, no dragon anywhere would ever question your honor or your intentions again. From the viewing gallery, Sorella's voice rang out. Even weakened, she commanded attention. She spoke in the dragon tongue, her words passionate and urgent. Lissa translated, her young voice breaking with emotion. Mommy says no. She says you've already proven yourself beyond any doubt. She says you saved her life and her children's lives, and that's proof enough. She says she won't allow you to die for something you've already demonstrated through your actions. Reed and Tommy added their voices, both crying. Please don't make him do it. Please. He's our friend. Jake looked up at those 3 small faces pressed against the viewing barrier. He saw Sorella beside them, still bearing the scars of her ordeal, standing on shaky legs because she refused to let him face this alone. Then he looked back at the council. If I refuse this trial, Jake said slowly, what happens? You would be escorted to the border of dragon space and forbidden from ever returning, Hrothgar explained. You would live. You would be free. But the question of whether humans can be trusted with dragonkind would remain unanswered. Our laws would remain unchanged. And the next human who tries to help a dragon in need might face execution without the benefit of doubt. There it was. The real choice. Jake could walk away, save himself, and leave things exactly as they were. Or he could risk everything to prove that humans deserve trust. He thought about Lissa's face when he'd first found them. The way all 3 babies had trembled while trying to protect their dying mother. The trust in their eyes when they finally believed he meant no harm. I'll do it, Jake said. No. Lissa's scream echoed through the chamber. Jake, please. You don't have to prove anything. We know you're good. We know. Jake looked up at her, and somehow managed to smile. I know you know, kiddo. But I made a promise to your mom. I promised I'd keep you safe. And that means making sure every dragon in this galaxy knows that humans can be trusted with your kind. That means other humans who want to help won't be killed for it. That means maybe someday, dragons and humans can be real friends. He turned back to Hrothgar. I'll take your trial. When do we start? Hrothgar stood, his massive form towering over Jake. You understand you will likely die? That this trial has killed every non-dragon who has attempted it. Yeah, I understand. Why? The golden dragon, the one with the gentle voice, asked. Why risk certain death for people you barely know? Jake thought about that for a moment. Because those kids trusted me when they had no reason to. Because Sorella put her children's lives in my hands. Because if I walk away now, I'm teaching them that humans only help when it's safe and easy. And that's not the lesson I want to leave behind. The council members looked at each other again, that silent communication passing between them. Finally, Hrothgar spoke. Jake Morrison, your courage is noted and honored. The trial of fire will commence at dawn. You will be given time to prepare yourself. Use it wisely. It may be the last time you have. As guards escorted Jake to preparation chambers, the last thing he heard was Lissa crying, and Sorella's anguished roar echoing through the ship. The 3 babies were pressing against the barrier, their small claws scraping at the transparent surface, trying to reach the human who'd saved them and was now walking toward almost certain death. Commander Variance walked beside Jake in the corridor. I must ask you one final time. Are you absolutely certain about this? Jake looked back toward the chamber, though he couldn't see the viewing gallery anymore. Yeah. I'm certain. Those kids deserve a galaxy where people help each other. If I've got to walk through fire to prove that's possible, then that's what I'll do. Variance was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Jake didn't expect. For what it's worth, human, I hope you survive. The galaxy needs more beings willing to risk everything for what's right. Jake managed a tired smile. Thanks, Commander. Me too. Jake stood at the entrance to the trial chamber wearing a thermal suit that looked like it belonged in a museum. The dragon technicians had done their best to modify it for human use, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The suit was designed to protect young dragons during their trials, and young dragons had natural fire resistance. Jake had skin that burned if he stayed in the sun too long. Commander Varian stood beside him one last time. The first chamber tests physical courage. The second tests mental strength. The third tests the purity of your spirit through impossible choice. You can withdraw at any moment by speaking the word surrender. No one will think less of you. Through the observation window, Jake could see the 3 babies pressed against the glass. Sorella stood with them, her wing draped protectively over all 3 even though she was still recovering. Their faces were etched with fear. Jake gave them a small wave, trying to look more confident than he felt. Reed waved back frantically. Tommy was crying silently. Lissa just stared at him with those intelligent eyes, and Jake could see she knew exactly how dangerous this was. "I'm ready," Jake said, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. The doors opened, and heat hit him like a physical wall. The first chamber stretched before him, a tunnel of living flame. The pathway was maybe 3 feet wide, surrounded on all sides by fire that burned blue and white with intensity. Jake's suit immediately started screaming warnings. The temperature readings were climbing past anything the suit was rated for. Jake took his first step forward, and pain shot through his feet even through the thick boots. The heat was unbelievable. He could feel it cooking him slowly, turning his skin red and angry beneath the protective layers. He thought about turning back. Every survival instinct he had was begging him to run. But then he remembered Lissa's words from that first day, "You have a brave fire inside." Jake walked. Each step was agony. His vision swam from the heat. Sweat poured down his face, evaporating almost instantly. The suit's cooling systems were running at maximum capacity and failing. He could smell something burning and realized with sick horror that it was his own hair, the ends singeing despite the helmet. Through the observation speakers, he could hear the babies calling his name, begging him to stop. He couldn't look back. If he looked back, he'd lose his nerve. Halfway through the tunnel, Jake's legs started to give out. The heat was too intense. His body was shutting down, trying to protect itself. He dropped to his hands and knees and crawled. The floor burned through the suit's gloves and knee pads. He could feel blisters forming on his palms. But he kept moving. Inch by burning inch. He focused on breathing, on moving, on not passing out. The exit seemed impossibly far away, like a mirage that kept receding. When he finally stumbled through into the second chamber, Jake collapsed on the cooler floor, gasping. His suit was smoking. The temperature warnings had stopped because half the sensors had melted. He gave himself 10 seconds to recover, then forced himself to stand. The second chamber was different. Cooler. Almost comfortable. But as Jake's eyes adjusted, he realized why this might be worse than the fire. The room was filled with images. Holograms, maybe, or something more advanced. They showed things Jake didn't want to see. His family back on Earth, receiving a message that he'd died in Dragon space. His mother crying. His father's face going blank with grief. His little sister asking why he'd left them. The images shifted. Now he saw Sorella dying in that wreckage, the babies watching helplessly as their mother took her last breath. He saw himself walking away from the distress beacon, ignoring the call, choosing safety over compassion. He saw the babies, alone and terrified, slowly succumbing to radiation and fear. "Not real," Jake whispered. "Not real." But they felt real. The images pressed in around him, whispering. Telling him he wasn't strong enough. That he'd fail. That his help had meant nothing. That the babies would forget him as soon as he was gone. That he was going to die here for nothing. Jake closed his eyes, but the voices didn't stop. They dug into his deepest fears, the ones he never talked about. The fear that he didn't matter. That his life was too small to make a difference. That he'd die alone and forgotten in the vast emptiness of space. He thought about giving up. About speaking the word surrender and ending this nightmare. Then he heard a small voice through the observation speakers. Lissa, talking to her brothers. "He won't give up. I know he won't. Humans are stubborn like that. Especially Jake." The simple faith in her voice cut through the illusions like a blade. Jake opened his eyes and looked directly at the image of his family. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "But there are kids here who need me to be brave. And I think you'd understand that." He walked forward, and the illusions scattered like smoke. The path opened to the third chamber, and Jake's breath caught. This one was simpler. Just a large room with 2 doors. Above one door, a hologram showed the exit. Safety. Freedom. An end to the pain. Above the other door, deeper in the chamber, Jake could see what looked like Sorella, collapsed and calling for help. It was obviously a trick. Obviously an illusion like the ones in the previous chamber. The real Sorella was safe in the observation deck. This was a test of choice. Take the easy path to safety, or risk more suffering for something that wasn't even real. Jake looked at the exit door for a long moment. He could end this. Walk through, survive, go home. He'd already proven his courage. No one could say he hadn't tried. But then he thought about what that choice would mean. It would mean he was the kind of person who only helped when it was convenient. When it was real. When there was something to gain. Can't do it, Jake muttered. Can't be that guy. He turned toward the deeper path, toward the illusion of Sorella. His suit was falling apart now, pieces of melted material sloughing off. The heat in this chamber was rising again, not as intense as the first tunnel but building steadily. The path led him through increasingly difficult terrain. Flames licked at his legs. The floor became unstable, shifting under his feet. He could barely see through the smoke and heat distortion. The illusion of Sorella kept calling out, sounding more and more desperate. Jake's body was beyond pain now, moving on pure determination. His hands were burned badly. His face felt like it had been held too close to a furnace. Every breath hurt. He reached the illusion, and it dissolved as he expected. But a new path opened beyond it, leading to the true exit. Jake took one step toward it and fell. His legs simply wouldn't support him anymore. He lay on the burning floor, unable to move. Through his fading consciousness, he could hear the dragons in the observation deck. Some were calling for the trial to be stopped. Others were insisting it had to run its course. Then he heard Lissa screaming his name, her voice raw with fear. Promised, Jake whispered, though no one could hear him. Promised I'd keep them safe. He couldn't walk. So he crawled. His suit was completely destroyed now, hanging in tatters. His skin was red and blistered everywhere. His vision was going dark around the edges. But he crawled. The exit was only 20 feet away. Then 10. Then 5. Jake's hand crossed the threshold, and he collapsed completely. The last thing he heard before darkness took him was a collective gasp from the observation deck, and Hrothgar's voice, filled with something that might have been awe. In 10,000 years, no non-dragon has survived the trial of fire. It should not be possible. When Jake woke, he was floating in liquid that smelled like cinnamon and felt like cool silk against his ruined skin. He was in some kind of healing tank, breathing through a mask. Through the transparent walls, he could see dragons moving around, medical staff checking monitors and speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Beyond them, he saw the 12 council members standing in a semicircle. And as his eyes focused, as consciousness fully returned, Jake realized something that made his heart skip. They were bowing. All 12 of them. Ancient dragons who'd lived for centuries, who commanded respect from entire star systems, were bowing to a cargo hauler from Earth who'd just been stupid enough to walk through fire for 3 kids he barely knew. Elder Hrothgar's voice came through a speaker near the tank. Rest, Jake Morrison. You have done the impossible. And when you wake, everything changes. In a viewing area nearby, 3 small dragons were pressed against another window, watching him with huge eyes. Lissa, Tommy, and Reed. All 3 were crying, but they were smiling too. Jake managed a weak thumbs up before exhaustion pulled him back under. His last thought before sleep took him was simple and clear: worth it. Jake spent 5 days floating in the healing tank, drifting in and out of consciousness. The dragon medical technology was incredible, rebuilding damaged tissue at a rate that would have taken months with human medicine. Every time he woke, the 3 babies were pressed against the viewing window, waiting. They'd apparently refused to leave except when the medical staff physically made them go eat or sleep. When the doctors finally drained the tank and helped Jake out, his skin was pink and new in places, still tender but healing remarkably fast. A dragon medic whose scales were soft green examined him with equipment that hummed and glowed. You healed faster than we expected, she said in careful English. Much faster. Almost dragon fast. Your body adapted to our treatments in ways we've never seen in other species. Very unusual. Very interesting. Jake flexed his hands, testing the new skin. Everything worked, though it felt strange. How unusual are we talking? We're not entirely sure, the medic admitted. But Elder Hrothgar wishes to speak with you. He's been waiting. They gave Jake simple clothes, soft and comfortable, nothing like his ruined cargo hauler uniform. As he walked through the ship's corridors, dragons stopped what they were doing to stare. Some nodded respectfully. Others whispered to each other. Jake felt deeply uncomfortable with all the attention. The moment he entered the recovery lounge, 3 small bodies slammed into him. Lissa, Tommy, and Reed nearly knocked him over, all talking at once. You're okay. We thought you'd never wake up. The doctor said you survived, but it was really bad and we were so scared. Jake laughed, wrapping his arms around all three of them. Hey, I'm fine. Takes more than a little fire to stop a stubborn cargo hauler. A little fire? Lissa pulled back to look at him with serious eyes. Jake, you were burned over 60% of your body. The doctors said any human should have died in the first chamber. They said what you did was impossible. Yeah, well. Jake ruffled the scales on her head gently. Your mom said I have a brave fire inside, remember? Guess she was right. Sorella entered then, moving with the grace and power she'd lacked when Jake first found her. She was completely healed now, her emerald scales gleaming, her presence commanding. But when she looked at Jake, her ancient eyes were soft with emotion. Jake Morrison, she said in perfect English. You saved my life. You saved my children. And then you nearly died to prove that your species deserves our trust. There are no words in any language sufficient to thank you. You really don't need to thank me, Jake said. I just did what anyone should do. But they don't, Sorella said quietly, settling her massive form nearby. That's what makes it remarkable. You did what others wouldn't. Elder Rothgar entered the lounge, and despite his size, he moved with surprising quiet. The other council members filed in behind him. Jake tried not to feel intimidated by having 12 of the most powerful dragons in the galaxy all focused on him. Jake Morrison, Rothgar began. The council has reached a decision. What you accomplished in the Trial of Fire should have been impossible. The trial is designed to test young dragons, beings with natural fire resistance and mental fortitude beyond most species. You have neither advantage, yet you succeeded where every other non-dragon has failed. I had good motivation, Jake said simply, glancing at the three babies pressed against his sides. Indeed. Rothgar's golden eyes gleamed. The trial revealed something we have never witnessed. You possess what we call the inner flame. It is the quality we value above all others. Courage not for glory, but for protection. Strength not for domination, but for service. Compassion even when it costs everything. This flame burns in all dragons. We have never seen it burn so brightly in another species. The golden dragon, the one with the gentle voice, stepped forward. We dragons are an old species. We have seen countless civilizations rise and fall. We have learned to be cautious, to protect ourselves, to trust slowly if at all. But you, Jake Morrison, have reminded us of something we had almost forgotten. What's that? Jake asked. That courage and kindness are not unique to any one species. That the measure of a being is not their biology, but their choices. Rothgar spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of formal pronouncement. Jake Morrison, the council hereby declares you fireborn. You carry the inner flame not by birth, but by spirit. You are granted the status of protector to Sorella's family, and you are named as the first human ambassador to the Dragon Council. Jake blinked. I'm sorry, what? Commander Varian stepped forward, and Jake could swear the massive dragon was smiling. It means you're not a cargo hauler anymore. You're a diplomat. The first human to ever hold a position in dragon government. But I don't know anything about being a diplomat, Jake protested. I haul freight. I fix broken equipment. I can barely fill out customs forms correctly. You saved lives when you could have walked away, Sorella said softly. You faced impossible odds to protect children. You proved that humans and dragons can trust each other. That makes you exactly the right person for this role. Lissa tugged on Jake's sleeve. Does this mean you're staying? You're not leaving us. Jake looked down at her hopeful face, at Tommy and Reed watching him with the same desperate hope. He thought about his little cargo ship, his quiet life running supplies between stations, the simple existence he'd known for years. Then he thought about 3 small dragons who'd chosen to trust him in their darkest moment. Yeah, kiddo, he said softly. I'm staying. The news spread across the galaxy faster than lightspeed communications. Humanity had produced someone the dragons honored. The species that had remained isolated and suspicious for millennia had opened their borders and their government to a human. Other species took immediate notice. Within weeks, trade delegations began arriving at human stations, seeking conversations and connections. The Centauri Collective, who'd barely acknowledged human existence before, sent ambassadors. The Andromedan Commerce Guild offered technology exchanges. Even the notoriously isolationist Void Dwellers sent a message of congratulations. All because one cargo pilot couldn't walk away from crying children. Jake's tiny hauler was replaced with a ship that looked like a work of art. It was a joint construction project, designed by both human and dragon engineers working together for the first time in history. The ship had quarters sized for both species, medical bays equipped with dual technology, and engines that made Jake's old hauler look like a museum piece. Lissa announced that she wanted to be an ambassador when she grew up, just like Jake. She started studying human culture and language with fierce determination. Tommy decided he wanted to learn human medicine, fascinated by how Jake had improvised treatments with primitive equipment. Reed just wanted to stay close to his human, following Jake around the ship like a devoted puppy. Sorella explained the concept of Ember Father to Jake. In dragon culture, when a parent needed help raising their young, they could choose another dragon to share that responsibility. It was a sacred bond, rarer even than mating bonds. My children have chosen you, Sorella said. Not because I asked them to. Because they want you in their lives. Will you accept the role of Ember Father? Jake looked at the three young faces watching him hopefully. I don't know how to be a dragon parent. I don't know your traditions or your customs. You already know the most important thing, Sorella said. You know how to protect them. How to comfort them. How to put their needs above your own safety. Everything else, we can teach you. Jake accepted. His first official mission as ambassador was to the human frontier worlds, to explain the new alliance and what it meant. The three babies insisted on coming, and Sorella gave her blessing with knowing eyes. The ship launched with a crew that was half human, half dragon. Commander Varian served as co-ambassador, and the two of them spent the journey figuring out how to navigate the complex diplomatic waters ahead. You know, Varian said one evening as they reviewed treaty proposals, when I first got the distress call about Sorella's ship, I was prepared to execute whoever had violated dragon space. I never imagined that violation would lead to the biggest shift in our civilization in 1,000 years. Jake smiled tiredly. Yeah, well. Life's funny that way. On Earth, Jake's story became legend. Schools taught about the cargo pilot who proved that the greatest strength wasn't in weapons or technology, but in the courage to help others even when it cost everything. Children grew up hearing about the man who walked through fire to protect three small dragons he barely knew. In the dragon homeworlds, hatchlings learned the story of Jake Morrison, the first fireborn human. The one who survived the trial that should have killed him because he'd made a promise to scared children and refused to break it. Other species began to look at humanity differently. Not just as clever survivors or stubborn negotiators, but as beings capable of profound compassion. The kind of compassion that could change the course of galactic history. Years later, when Lissa graduated from the Diplomatic Academy with highest honors, she gave a speech that would be quoted across the galaxy. My human father taught me that the bravest thing you can do is care when it's dangerous to care. That strength isn't about dominating others, but protecting them. That the smallest act of kindness can shake entire civilizations. Every negotiation I conduct, every treaty I draft, every bridge I build between species, I do it because a human showed me that compassion transcends biology. Jake watched from the audience, tears streaming down his face. Tommy and Reed sat on either side of him, both grown now but still considering him family. Sorella sat behind them, her wing draped protectively over all three of her children and the human who'd become part of their family. After the ceremony, a young human diplomat approached Jake nervously. Ambassador Morrison? I just wanted to say thank you. Because of what you did, I get to serve here. Humans and dragons working together. It's amazing. Jake smiled at her. Just remember why we're here. It's not about glory or politics or power. It's about building a galaxy where people help each other. Where species differences don't matter as much as shared values. Where kids like Lissa and her brothers never have to face danger alone. The young diplomat nodded seriously. I'll remember. As Jake walked through the diplomatic complex that night, dragons and humans working side by side, he thought about that distress beacon all those years ago. The choice he'd made to respond instead of staying safe. One choice. One moment of compassion. And everything had changed. Reed bumped against his side affectionately. What are you thinking about, Dad? Jake put his arm around his dragon son. Just thinking about how lucky I am. That I happened to be in the right place at the right time to meet you guys. We're the lucky ones, Reed said softly. You saved us. You saved all of us. Jake looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that had once seen humans and dragons as forever separate. Now they built together, learned together, grew together. All because one cargo pilot couldn't walk away from three crying children and their dying mother. Yeah, Jake said quietly. I guess we're all pretty lucky. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other beings heard the story and learned that the greatest power in the universe wasn't force or technology. It was the simple, stubborn courage to care.